if you're going to be in this industry the next 10 years, you better be booking Gen Z brides. If you're not booking Gen Z couples, then you have to think about like your branding and what your approach and strategy is going to be. Because I'm looking at what is my next 10 years going to look like? How am I going to, solve these problems? So if you're just having like a great time with weddings right now, it could evaporate very quickly.
Hey, welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Raymond Hatfield, and today we're chatting with commercial photographer Justin Haugen about how leveling up your skills can open up the door for more opportunities for you as a photographer in the future. But first, you know this, the Beginner Photography Podcast is brought to you by CloudSpot. CloudSpot has everything that you need to build a thriving photography business. You can impress your clients, deliver a professional experience, and streamline your workflow in just one platform. It's amazing. Grab your free forever account over at deliverphotos.com today and only upgrade when you are ready. A fun fact, Justin was actually Beginner Photography Podcast guest number 3. I remember I had reached out to him after finding some of his images from an engagement session that he shared on Reddit. After that, we became friends on Facebook, and keeping up with him over the years, I've always really admired his use of light and in particular flash. He really has this amazing ability, I found, to turn like these ordinary scenes, maybe it's not that exciting, it's a hallway, it's a blank wall, into something incredible. And it's because he knows how to use light, so well. It's all about his use of light. Now, Justin has recently transitioned out of weddings and is now shooting more corporate and commercial work. So today, we talk about those similarities and differences when changing your whole focus in photography, as well as tips for you on how to master your lighting, even if you prefer natural light. And of course, some strategies for getting into the commercial space and dealing with corporate clients. So hold on tight, a lot in this one. With that, let's go ahead and get on into today's interview with Justin Haugen. Justin, last time you were on, 2016, which is crazy to think about, you were our third ever guest, which I don't know if you went back and listened to the interview, but it was a long time ago. And I feel like we had no idea what we were doing. And I remember I reached out to you because I had seen some of your images on Reddit. You did this engagement session at an arcade or something like that. And I was like, these are so great because your use of light was just, it blew me away. It was something that I had never even considered doing, and taking out the lights and the modifiers and stuff out to an engagement session. So we reached out and you came on and you delivered. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but your episode is consistently one of the most downloaded for the show. So congratulations. Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah. It's funny. I had no idea that I was the third guest on your show, and I didn't listen to the episode because I wanted to wait until after this was done so I could kind of cross-reference my progress and my answers to you and during that time that's passed. So I was waiting till after we finished to take a listen.
Good call. Good call. Photographers don't like to look at their first photos because it's ooh, man, I've learned so much since then. I've moved. I felt the exact same way. So you might feel the same way. You're going to be like, ugh. This was so early on. But anyway, welcome back. Today, I really want to talk about your progression because the last time you were on, you were shooting weddings. That was your main focus. And today you've transitioned, but a lot has happened since 2016. So before we get into it, why don't you let the new listeners of the podcast know kind of who you are, where you got your start in photography?
So I'm Justin Haugen. I was formerly a wedding and portrait photographer here in Tucson, Arizona. My start in photography began 20 years ago. I was going to school for graphic design, and I just needed a camera in my hands because I love to do photo manipulation as a part of my design elements, and I was always in need of good photography. And I got interested in photography. Maybe I can do this. I can totally hear my daughter crying in the background asking for me. So that's changed in 8 years. I have a daughter now. But she's going to come running to the door right now, I hear.
This is going to be great.
Hold on one second. Let me tend to her real quick. Baby girl. Hi. Daddy's on a call right now, okay? Daddy's on a call, okay? I'll come out here and play with you later, okay? Can I get a kiss? Thank you. I love you. Okay. Yeah, feel free to edit that however you want or keep it in.
Hey, man, I was there as well. How old is she?
She turned 2 in June.
Oh my gosh, 2 years old. So much fun. So it's funny because listening back to some of the first episodes, my son was probably 3 when I first started the podcast, and he's now 11. And it's funny because some of the first comments that we would get is oh, I can, say hi to the baby back there. And like people just love babies. So like, no worries. That's great. That's great. And I heard that you got another one on the way,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah, I've got a baby boy due in January, so
Woo.
it's going to get really interesting here pretty
Yeah,
soon.
dude, it gets wild. But yeah, no problem. No worries at all. We left off, you were telling me kind of your start in photography, and I'll let you take
Mhm.
back from there.
Yeah, so photography was always something I did as a side hustle. Like while I had day jobs, I spent like every waking hour not at my day job working on photography. And so in 2013, I was let go of my job from my former employer, and they let me go. And I used that year to, well, first cry a lot, and then spend a lot of time kind of just coping with the idea of like what was I going to make of my life. I was just turning 30, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing for the next 10 years because I didn't have my bachelor's degree. My work experience was limited to the print industry, and like cameras and photography was all I was really into. But I'd already been doing photography for about 10 years at this point. So I had a body of work to portfolio, and I got my website together, and I climbed. This is back when you could actually climb the algorithm on Google more organically without having to buy ads. And I got to the number one search result for Tucson wedding photographers within by like January 2014. So I was laid off in May 2013. I got my site going. I portfolioed like crazy. I blogged like crazy. And I started getting inquiries like crazy. Like January of that year, it's like everyone started planning their weddings. I started booking. And that's where I started my full time wedding photography career because I had already been doing some weddings on the side. So that was the birth of my business. And people always ask, like, what was your business plan? And my business plan was fear because I didn't know how I was going to provide for myself. I had a partner at the time who had a son, and we didn't really have any good plans of like what we were going to be doing to try and keep the bills paid. So luckily, I figured it out relatively quick after losing that job. And so it's been since 2014. I kind of consider 2013, May 2013, the birth of my business because that's when I was laid off. And oddly, I did weddings and portraits over the years. I've probably shot in the ballpark of like 250 to 300 weddings now. And around 2019, 2018, I started to see my bookings tail off. I'm getting older, brides are getting younger, but I wasn't necessarily booking Gen Z brides, and that was becoming a problem for me. So I noticed that there was a drop off in my work. But as I was aging out of that market, I'm booking Gen Z brides, and that my former employer became one of my biggest accounts, and they lost a lot of their creative team, and I kept a lot of the connections that I had there, and I ended up with a purchase order. I ended up going through all the hoops that it takes to work with the government contractor, and they ended up becoming one of my accounts. So now I service a lot of their photography needs here in Arizona, and sometimes I travel for them as well. So it's funny that my former employer is now one of my biggest employers in a way, and it's a different dynamic from working for a company to working with a company, and I like things where they're at on this side of the relationship. So around that time, I was picking up in that work, and weddings were dropping down, and then COVID hit 2020, and I spent most of that year not. I went from like 65 invoices with my client to like six,
Wow.
and I was contemplating a career change. I thought maybe it was a good time to like get a certification, go back to school. I thought maybe I would get into like IT or something because computers has always been in my life. And hell, I even thought like, man, maybe I'm gonna have to work at UPS or Geek Squad or Genius Bar or something. Like I didn't have a lot of like, I didn't know what skills I had to offer employers, especially without a degree. Luckily, I got through COVID, and then I had sold my house by beginning of 2021. I'd sold my house of 10 years, and I ended up meeting a woman in Tucson, but I had moved to Phoenix for like all of 2 months. I was going to pivot and do a different direction with my photography. I was going to live with family, and I had some money now after I'd sold my house, and all the work picked back up after that first vaccination rolled out. And I started coming back to Tucson like weekly. And my girlfriend at the time, she told me, why don't you just come live with me and do your work down here? And so that's what I did. And then later that year, we decided, hey, why don't we start a family? And so we did. And then we got married last year in October of 2023. 2022, we bought a house. I ended up staying here in Tucson, and my business picked up meteorically like after that. So 2021 was a decent year. 2022, I felt a lot of momentum. I was actually working part time at Magmod doing customer support for them because I had a relationship as an ambassador and I know the products very well. And so I worked part time with them while still building back my photography clientele. And then 2023 2023, I was working with a new client. They're an exploration mining company. And so with them and Raytheon, I now had like two major accounts that I was servicing. And last year was the biggest year of my business. And then we got married and all this crazy stuff happened. And now I'm here in 2024 and I'm kind of at a crossroads right now. I was doing great until the last couple months. And I'm very open about downturns in business, but I noticed a downturn. And I know part of it is some seasonal stuff. And there is some other work on the horizon with my two accounts. But I am using this downturn right now to rebrand my website finally. It's still got wedding work on it and use this time to shoot some personal projects and focus on the next step for my business so I can really say that I'm a established commercial photographer. That's me. That's the last 10 years in a nutshell.
I was thinking, I was like, man, this is a lot. But if I had to describe the last 10 years of my life as well, it would probably be quite a bit. So a few things I want to go back and touch upon. One, I guess, let me ask about weddings first, because being able to get to that, first result in Google as a wedding photographer, that's like the elusive spot. Everybody wants it. For you, how important was that for you, like legitimately? And how did you use it to continue to grow as a wedding photographer?
It secured pretty much like 90% of my bookings in the first like 3, 4 years of my business.
Really?
Going full time. So it was the biggest thing I did was Google. The time I spent my website was very important. And then I kind of noticed like there's a drop off in like how frequently I blog. The busier you get, the less time you spend on the things that got you there,
Yeah.
which is a mistake. Yeah. I think if my advice for anyone that's establishing their brand and their website, you have to do upkeep on it. Don't get lazy and not update the things that show people what you're doing. And especially like the blogging part of it, if that's what got you there with your SEO, keep doing it, keep tagging all your vendors, keep showing your work. So that the website was a big part of it. I still think Google is like the number one way people start looking for things. Of course, social media has risen meteorically in that time. I think maybe with Gen Z brides, they're using Google less and TikTok and Instagram more. So,
Interesting.
I felt like that's why I was leaving the wedding space was why I was not getting traction in the wedding space as much because I was less active on social media after a period of time. And I feel like your average Gen Z bride has probably been following their favorite photographer on social media for years. And I just wasn't getting traction in that space. So maybe our values are different. I'm not saying that you can't book Gen Z brides. I know many photographers who are doing just fine, but I felt a disconnect for myself and I saw myself sliding into a different space. So I think those are questions you have to answer. Like I met with a photographer yesterday who was buying some gear from me and I know he's pretty successful. He's steadily booked. And I asked him, hey, how are you doing with Gen Z? Like, have you booked any Gen Z brides? And he's doing 30 weddings this year. And he said he's booked none, which is crazy to me because, well, I know people are getting married later now. However, that's the emerging wedding market. And that's going to be, the next, like I'm a millennial. I grew up with millennials. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that that's who my base clientele have been. But if you're going to be in this industry the next 10 years, you better be booking Gen Z brides because that's or Gen Z. I always say brides like they're the ones who drive the
Right.
bookings, but
I
it's
do the
couples.
same.
You want
Yeah.
to book so yeah, you have to figure out that question. Like if you're not booking Gen Z couples, then you have to think about like your branding and what your approach and strategy is going to be because I'm looking at what is my next 10 years going to look like and how am I going to, solve these problems. So if you're just having like a great time with weddings right now, it could evaporate very quickly.
Yeah. I found I got out of weddings for a similar reason. It was that the brides stayed the same age and I just kept getting older. And I had a wedding where the couple, I don't even think they were 20, honestly. And like, here I am, like I got like a 7 and a 10-year-old at home. And I'm just like, I can't connect with these two in the way that I would like to be able to capture images that are truly them. I really want to be able to know who they are so that I can create images again that are unique to them as a couple. And I just was not able to do that. That was one of the reasons why I got out. But let me ask, so if for weddings, right, for you, Google was really important. Google was important to get the attention, but there was also like 100 other wedding photographers websites out there. How would you describe your body of work compared to other wedding photographers in Tucson? Like, what do you think made you stand out?
I think stylistically, I was in a more darker and cinematic space with my imagery. It was very flash driven, which as I got later into my wedding career, I kind of pulled back on that.
Really?
When I look back on the body of work, And it's funny, I'm very proud of like a lot of my wedding work that I see where I'm like, man, that still looks like a standout image to me. I could throw that into a portfolio today. I know, and some things have aged poorly, like my editing style, which is funny. It got me a lot of fanfare from people who would message me like, hey, what are you using for your preset? And I would just show them what I was doing. And that style aged poorly, like crushed tone curves where I was like making blacks into darker grays and whites into lighter grays. So you're losing like a true white and black point. It didn't print well. I see it now and I'm like, oh, that's like my pastel phase. And it just felt, it's stylistic, but it didn't age well. It doesn't feel timeless. It just feels very much like 2015 to 2017 for
Hmm.
me. And so I got away from that. But yeah, I think my style I would call it, I feel like I was coining dark and moody before that became like a trend.
Yeah.
And I always did it as a counter to light and airy because I hated that idea. Stylistically, I wasn't into it. But the more I shot it and the more I have retrospect to look back on the work, I kind of feel like maybe I was serving my personal creative ego more than I was serving the needs of my clients. Like, yes, people target you for a style; they see themselves in your images. But sometimes I'd go through all these great lengths to like do these crazy like backlit photos where I'm like throwing colored shells at a couple and making it look really out there. And then I would see it later and I'd be like, you can't tell who they are.
Mm.
Or what is this? Like, yeah, like this was my canvas and I was using the light as my paintbrush, but I didn't see them share it in their social media. So did they like the photo or did I just do this to, there's a lot of clout chasing where other photographers on social media want to impress other photographers.
Yeah.
That's exhausting. And I think like that's what's weird about the Instagram space and social media space for photographers sharing their work is it's really for other photographers. It's like not as much for clients as you would think. Like it really ends up being like you want to impress your peers. I think like there's some motivation there. People aren't being honest with themselves if they think otherwise.
Sure. So then let me ask, how are you using social media today since you've transitioned away from weddings into more corporate and commercial work?
I'm not happy with Instagram and as a platform in terms of how it's nerfed a lot of the algorithms for engagement. So where I could share an image 7 years ago and get like 800 likes and a bunch of comments, lots of engagement, that's dwindled. Now I can share a standout image and it gets like 50 likes and it gets like a comment or two. And it's probably somebody that I know personally, maybe not even a photographer. And yeah, like you like the recognition, you like the engagement, but after a while that's stopped meaning as much to me, which is hard because I have brand relationships. I have relationships with companies that are vested in like my reach and how I can communicate with an audience. Meanwhile, Instagram's working against you to nerf that reach, especially on smaller accounts. But I've seen it happen to bigger accounts too. So it just kind of diminished some of my will to like constantly post. But now that I'm rebranding, I feel a spark to show what I've been doing because there's like a gap in the work. I want to retool the account to show my more commercial stuff that I'm allowed to share. And then I don't see it being integral in how I connect with B2B with other businesses. I'm going to be undergoing like a marketing audit once my new website's designed with a professional who's going to consult me. And she has very strong ideas about where I should be spending my time. And she's told me that LinkedIn is the perfect space for me because it is B2B. People are there with the expectation of interacting with businesses. You'll encounter like marketing directors, HR managers, like the people that I want to connect with in that space. And I can share my work and not be crushed by an algorithm that's trying to limit my reach because it wants to encourage commerce and paid advertising.
Hmm. So, do you think if you were still shooting weddings, that would you see any purpose in LinkedIn, or this is morely just commercial and
This
corporate?
is more
I
B2B.
see.
Yeah, more B2B for sure. This is a pivot for me. I've been on LinkedIn, but I've never really used it. So it makes sense to me that that's a space where I need to spend more time in if I'm going to focus on social media. So I'll still keep active on Instagram to some degree. Instagram's become a more personal space for me,
Hmm.
like when I share stories and stuff. But I think that I'll be changing that strategy here soon and just trying to show more of what I'm doing. Because like I'm working on a personal project that is going to resonate within my community and already I have a strong body of work going. So Instagram's still the space for that.
Hmm. Could you tell me a little bit about this personal project?
Yeah, so I've always had it in the mind. Like, so my favorite space in photography, like where if I could just shoot this as my passion, as my career, like that, this is where I'd love to be exclusively is I really love meeting people and photographing them in their place of work, rest, or play. Like, I love that. Like, for me, my strengths are communication, making people feel comfortable, and then getting them to be vulnerable on camera. So that for me is it's just portraiture. I like studio portraiture. I enjoy it. I have a respect for the medium, but it's for me, it's like I love seeing how somebody is tied to a space, like how like when they're in their comfort zone, and that's where I feel like I get the best results. And also photographically, I respond well to space. If I go somewhere, it invokes something different creatively, no matter where I'm at. So I started this project. Right now, I'm calling it Trades, and it's local tradespeople in my community. So I've reached out to my personal networks. I've used Reddit, and I'm just cold emailing people with my Calendly invite to book a session with me. And I basically spend up to 2 hours with somebody in their place of work. And I'm specifically after tradespeople, people who just living with their hands, who run a business full time, and this is their primary source of income. And I've photographed two bladesmiths so far, people who make really intricate, incredible knives. I've got a floor, my wedding florist is in there. I've got a local butcher who just opened a new location. I've got a fabricator, artist friend. I've got a local bike mechanic who owns a shop, only female bike mechanic and bike store owner in Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got like more people lined up, people who work in pottery. I've got a PPF installer. He does auto detailing and paint protection film installations. So I worked in his shop. Like anything like somebody with your hands, the weirder the better. Like I've got a lady who is a female antique Volkswagen bus mechanic, and she has another woman who works with her. I'm like, perfect. Like the more obscure and like crazy, like that's how you pay the bills. Like I want to meet you. And it kind of feels like, you ever remember Mike Rowe,
Oh yeah.
his Dirty
Yeah.
Jobs? It's kind of my dirty jobs. And not necessarily dirty, but like the florist, and she was great. Like she had a beautiful space, but everybody's space invokes such a different response to me photographically and how I see them and how I see them in their space. So it's the ultimate like challenge for me to go and shoot these projects, usually sight unseen in their space. So I get to respond to like what the environment invokes for me creatively. And I've kind of narrowed in my tools. Like I'm shooting a lot of this on my Fuji X-T2. It's an older camera that I've had that like I just get great stuff out of it. And I like it personally for this project because I'm very slow and measured versus like I shoot Sony and Tamron for my professional work. But this project kind of has called for like a softer, slower hand. And I've got a very particular light dialed in, like lighting look dialed in, where I'm using the same modifiers, but I'm kind of playing with the ratios of key to fill light. And so I'm getting this sometimes moody, sometimes a little brighter, but it's very intuitive to the scene. I'm trying to be very subtle with the lighting and not have it heavy handed where the flash is so apparent. And I'm just getting very fun and interesting results. And the best part is like one of my subjects, she told me, like everyone loves to tell me how they hate getting their picture taken.
Every time.
Yeah, but when I showed her some of the back of the camera, she had a moment where I could tell like maybe she was getting a little emotional, and she was on the verge of tears. She had some tears welling up, and I think she had a moment where she realized maybe she'd been hard on herself. And this was her be kind to yourself moment where she's like, oh, like she saw herself, and I got to show her a piece of herself through my camera. And I think it resonated with her, and I love that moment because I haven't really had that since I shot in the wedding space. And being able to just do that, taking somebody's portrait, it's a really special feeling to make somebody feel good about themselves in pictures, because we're also very hard on ourselves about how we look in pictures. And that's been the reward of the project. So my goal is that I'd like to get to 50. I'm at like 9 or 10 right now. I'd like to get to 50 and have this body of work, and maybe look at self-publishing a small run of books, or do a gallery type showing where I can involve everybody who was in the project and at the showing opening, and that we could do a local community type thing where all the people can share their businesses and they can be part of the show. They can be there for that part of the project at the showing because they were involved with the photos. So
yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Wow. Okay. Few questions here. One being, in the world of you're working B2B now with commercial and corporate, time is money, right? For you to be taking the time to not only like research these makers, but then also just send out your Calendly link and be like, yeah, you can just steal 2 hours of my time. Like I'll do this for you. I guess what's the maybe what's the point is the wrong question here. But like if we're playing devil's advocate here, you could be spending that 2 hours reaching out to new businesses for more corporate accounts and stuff. So why are you working on this?
Sure. And I will do that. Like when the website, my buddy is working on my website right now. I got to do my marketing audit, and that's on my roadmap right now. But I'm very slow right now. It started last month, it's going into this month. I've got some work scheduled out next month. But yeah, I'm in a slump right now, and I haven't had this since the wedding days when I would have a whole summer off because it's 120 degrees here, 110, and I would basically have to subsist off of finalized payments and deposits from March, late May through September, pretty much. So I'm used to that, weathering that. I just haven't experienced it in a while. So I don't know how to sit on my hands for long. Like I'm not good at just like, I can't like just kick it on the couch and scroll my feed or play games all the time. Like I have to feel like there's some type of measured progress. So I keep things on my project boards, and this was just my way of using the time productively. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I've got a couple other projects that I have in the can that like I want to pick around, but this was, I think it's going to be, it ties in line with my direction on my website because these are trades, that's business. There's still there's still a commercial element to this, even though it's stylized compared to what I would do for my commercial clients. So I feel like it's going to be good on a lot of different fronts. Like one, it is kind of my magnum opus. Like I don't have an artistic statement piece in my 20 years of doing this. I've never done something I considered art. I've always just done something in photography in service of others. And so this is me taking time to nurture my creative needs
Mm,
because I don't think of myself as an artist at all. I think of myself as I've thrown around creative mercenary for hire. Like I'm here fulfilling the needs of somebody else's vision. I work great with creative directors because they have great ideas. And then once I know the ideas, I know the ceiling and I know like how high to reach. But I'm not good at coming up with like really cool ideas, set design, all the things that make a shoot successful. I'm just like I'm a more of a cog in all that than I am the driver of it. So this is my first time in the driver's seat. But even then, I'm just responding to people who are already interesting. Like I'm not creating them; they've already exist. So I'm more of like an assembler of pieces, creative pieces, than I am like an originator of them. So
I see.
I forgot what the question
Well,
was.
no, that that was getting there. That was getting there. But so one thing is, like from going to weddings, is that you have to really be on your feet. Sometimes you're taking portraits, sometimes you're taking product shots, you're taking all this stuff. And as a wedding photographer, you are looked at as like the expert there. Like you're the professional, you're the hired gun.
Mhm.
And I know that you can like take whatever is in front of you at a wedding and you have to create something with it. So help me wrap my head around, is that a similar take to what you're doing here when you go into, say, a shop and meet with one of these makers? Is you see their space, you meet them, and you're like, okay, let's try to build something here? Or is it more than that in your photos?
I think what's nice about it is that I'm on their turf,
Yeah.
and I kind of lean on them to guide me through their process.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's more of me just being a participant or being an observer. And so I get to document. I have them do some work. I'm like, hey, is there a project you're working on, or can we kind of faux, Hollywood some work here? And you show me a part of your process. And usually the process is what informs what I'm doing with the camera, where I want to stand, where I want to light things. And then once they're disarmed from the proximity of the camera and the lighting, because I have like a 6 foot umbrella and then a 28-inch beauty dish,
Jeez.
and they're popping off, and it's a lot. So it's getting people comfortable in their space. And then once we've done that, we've got some chit chat underneath our belt, and we've talked a lot, and I get a sense of who they are. Then I can hop in and hit some portraits, and then that really is when I get kind of to the sense of who they are and try to. There's a look I'm after for that's kind of consistent, and I feel like I'm getting there with people pretty quickly. And 2 hours isn't a lot of time; it goes by very quickly. But I think more of the time is spent talking than it is taking pictures. I only
Right.
walk away with maybe like 150 frames.
Yeah, I gotcha. I totally understand. So it is still kind of that same wedding sense where it's like you throw me into the situation, and I'm going to figure it out, and we're going to make something great here. So have you had anybody say no, or like walk me through the rejection element of it? Because I know that people are thinking, "Oh, this sounds super cool," but it's hard to be vulnerable and put
Yeah.
yourself out there like that.
I don't know if it's like rejection so much as like sometimes people don't even answer. I've got like 10 emails out right now. Only like three people have replied yes, usually is a response. I had one business owner who I heard would like, and I'm working off referrals too. Like every person I photograph, like, hey, who's one person you can think of that's perfect for this project? Because
Mm.
I need that referral spiral, a snowball to keep happening. And one woman who was referred to me, she runs a salon, and I told her about this project. She loved my photos, but she said, I'm not photogenic. I can refer you to one of my stylists. And I don't know. Okay, I had a very visceral reaction to that. And I tried, and I'm rereading my response to her because it was on social media. And I think maybe I came across a little crass, not crass, but like you could probably tell my reply was like a little terse with her. But I did it in a joking way. I said to her, I was like, I didn't start this project to photograph photogenic people. I photographed it to like photograph. I did it to photograph people who are authentic. I want to photograph people in an authentic way who do something special and make people feel good and do things in their community. And that's why you were recommended. And then I jokingly said, if I wanted to photograph photogenic people, I would just hire models. And I think that comment turned her off and
Uh,
she never replied to me again. But like, that wasn't the point. And my idea of photogenic is completely different than a subject's photogenic, what they think is photogenic.
of course.
And that kind of falls back into the line of like, be more kind to yourself. Like, especially you work in the beauty industry, and I've seen photos of her. She's like a nice looking woman. And if it's like you don't like the project, you can say that too. I don't think it was that. I just think she didn't see herself in it, and which is fine. Looking back on it, I'm like, well, that's fine. I can find probably like 20 other salon owners, but she was recommended to me, and that's where I was trying to. I don't know why I took it personally a little bit, but I learned from it. It'll change my response in the future.
Yeah. Well, there is that, like, as a wedding photographer, I mean, you encounter people every single day who are like, oh, don't take a photo of me. Like, I don't like my photo being taken. Or every couple who's like, oh, we don't feel comfortable in front of the camera. And you
Mm-hmm.
take it on as like a personal mission to be like, I'm going to get one photo that like you absolutely love. So I totally understand that
Yeah.
reaction to somebody saying that. Let's transition a bit now into the corporate and commercial work because this is obviously where the business is going. You said that last year was one of your biggest years ever. Can you give me some context there as far as like maybe what was the size of your wedding business and what does it look like now?
Well, I shot my last wedding last year, April. I think I had three weddings booked. So I was closing out I was stopping inquiries, referring them out, and then it was primarily the work I had with the defense contract company and then the exploration mining company, Eclipse at work, like almost twofold. I had my plate full the whole year, and it was my top year. I had six-figure goals for that year. I think I reached it. I reached it in 2022, and then 2023. I was hoping to like stay in that range, and I ended up doubling what my initial estimate was going to be for the year. So it was a big year for my business. And so now that I've reached that, I don't like to take a step backward, which this year feels like a bit of a step backward. But now my goal is to like, I need to repeat success. Like I need to recapture like whatever got me into a space. I need to figure out what that entails. And luckily, the commercial space is. I'm in Tucson. It's like it's a lot less crowded. That was the reason I wanted to get into this space is because wedding photography is very crowded. I run a photo community. We just celebrated 10 years on Facebook, but we've got about 4,300 members. And in most groups, like the way a group runs, you have maybe like 5% of those people are active posters if you're lucky. So we have a pretty busy user base. And every time someone shares a wedding referral, hey, I've got a couple that, this is their budget, blah, blah, blah. Let me know if you're available. And I see like within an hour, there's like 40 responses. And I said, how is anyone going to find my name in that 40 list of 40 comments?
Yeah.
And why would I want to be in a room with 40 people trying to get one job? And that was, I think, a eye opening moment for me. What are you doing to stand out from that many people in a room, or do you even want to stand out from that many people in a room? And then a commercial shoot, like an industrial, like you need to shoot a 30-foot diameter, basically a metal tunnel that was welded by this industrial fabricator. Can anyone photograph this with studio lights? And I'm the only person who replied.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is where I need to be because this was one of my biggest jobs of the year. And I was the only person who said they could do it. And I
Mm.
didn't even know if I could do it. I mean, I knew I could do it, but like I hadn't done it before. I had no proof of concept. And I got it and did the work and it turned out, a standout piece in my portfolio. And then I realized like the more underserved a segment of the market is, that's where I want to be. So that was why I arrived at this conclusion that this would be the space for me.
Hmm. Why do you think that you mean specifically in commercial photography?
There's a higher barrier to entry in terms of like the know-how, the soft skills and the hard skills, like to be in that space. Like, and it's ageist, but I don't think a company would hire like a high profile Fortune 500 company is going to hire 22-year-old Justin
Hmm.
versus 41-year-old Justin. And that's just, unless you're doing something very exceptional. But I just think there's a lot of maturity that you lack at a certain age to even get your foot into those spaces and be have a seat at those tables. I'm still immature, and I still have a tendency to put my foot in my mouth or make inappropriate comments. So I have to like really reel myself in. But it's a different space, and their photography encompasses like the whole gamut of the population of what people do, how people are. So if you're an introvert or you are a poor communicator, or all those things, like they get exposed at a different level when you're suddenly in a room with a creative team, planning out a large production shoot. There isn't a lot of space for different kinds of people. You have to be measured and you have to be confident in those kind of settings. And so I think I've reached a level of confidence in my work and who I am as a person. And I think I am now like, I have a room, there's a seat at the table in those spaces for me. And that's where I aim to be.
Hmm. Let me ask, how did you kind of get involved with this? Because, like, if we're talking about creative directors and multiple people in marketing teams, and it's like, that seems like a higher risk compared to a wedding, right? A wedding day, you know what's going to happen. You know that a couple's going to be happy. You know that there's going to be a kiss. You're going to capture that. You're going to get some portraits. Done deal. But with a commercial shoot and more people involved and there needing to be a specific outcome, how do you get into that without even knowing if that's truly what it is that you want to do?
I mean, it didn't happen overnight. It's a culmination of all my photography experiences and a lot of like saying yes to things that, can you do this? Like, I don't know how many new skills I've learned just from like saying that I could do something and then having to research it. Like recently it was, I'm doing a year-long time-lapse camera, managing 3 cameras of a construction build. I've never
Really?
done that,
That's
but I told the
cool.
client I could do it. And now we're doing it. And now it's going to be a piece of my portfolio. It's literally a service I'm putting on my website now that I offer. So those skills, just I have to answer the call whenever some of those things happen. Like, am I willing? Is there like enough return on this if I do it? Should I learn the skill? So yeah, none of this stuff happens overnight. You don't just like suddenly wake up and like, oh yeah, I think I can lead a creative discussion with a room full of creative professionals and just like run with it. Like, no, it's been little by little, shoot after shoot, and different types of people, communication styles. Yeah, maybe even the wedding world kind of prepped me for that because I'm up against people's expectations and needs from what they expect their wedding to be, and then trying to like hit a creative mark and also a level of service, and all of that is transferable to different spaces of photography. If you could shoot weddings, you can do a lot in the photography space, especially if you're a good communicator. So I think weddings harden you for other work and prepare you for it. So I'm seasoned from all the different communication styles. I actually find now I have less touch points with clients in terms of like follow through on work afterwards. Like I do the shoot, I do the edits. I have processes that like I have somebody who retouches my work if I'm unavailable. If my time is better spent like on another project, then I have somebody who can cover the back end for me. Like there's just more process in place to free me up to be where I'm most successful and play into my strengths. It's just I've been doing this 20 years now, so there's confidence in the process, and you get there over time.
Yeah. Yeah. That was about as good of an answer as I could have expected, I guess. Because, I mean, you're right. You don't just wake up one day and it's like, hey, let's take on this huge, massive job. And then you just got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It really, these things do really build over time. So let's then talk about kind of the stakes, right? Because you're being hired to perform a job. They need assets in some way, and you have to deliver. So walk me through maybe like one of your most recent shoots. Like, what was it for? How do you ensure that you get the photos that they're looking for, and then how do you deliver on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. My last like big shoot was across a couple different states. It was like a week of travel and 2 different work sites, and I was actually kind of solo operating on this. Normally, I'd want to have assistants with me. I'd want to have more of that stuff in place, but I work very closely with the marketing director at this exploration mining company, and now we've built a level of trust where she expects me to just go and get the results. So we're developing assets for a catalog of images, asset management system, so that way they can pull up anything they like. Right now, our big focus is annual review and annual report in April that goes out to all the shareholders. That requires a lot of imagery because it's massive, and so we're planning for that. And so a lot of the photos I take go into that, and there's a lot of planning in place in terms of like the moving pieces, but creatively, I have a pretty good idea of like what's going to land. I come from a design background. I know how to shoot for negative space, how to make room for copy, how to offer different variations on the images so that way they can use them in different ways because of social media, because of print, whatever. My most recent project probably isn't the best example, but I've worked projects where there's creative meetings in advance. I probably have a producer booking out talent and location, and a lot of that stuff is just it's up to me to show up with my assistant, my gear, and shoot. And then we've had a vision board or a mood board to show like what kind of images have been successful in the past or what inspires the current shoot. And there's all these moving pieces, but having a producer or a creative director on hand is very helpful, where when I show up, like I know the gear that I'm going to bring, I know a lot of the setups I'm going to try out, and then we just shoot through the shot list of the day. So that's kind of what a big project looks like for me.
So with the creative director there, they're going to see what it is that you're shooting. I'm assuming, are you shooting tethered? Can they see the images? Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, if it calls for it, like I can slap a laptop on my multi-cart and then I can shoot tethered. I've got a cable that's up to 30 feet long, so I have more than enough range. Or the cart can come with me if my assistant's rolling it around. So yeah, we can image review as we shoot. I can even do with Capture One. I can, if I'm connected to the internet, it'll live gallery generate, and I can share with somebody remotely what's going on with the shoot.
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens too. We can actually flag images live while we're doing the shoot.
That's got to be extremely helpful. I think one, just to have that second set of eyes to be able to tell you like, yes, we got it, or no, we need to work on this. But can you give me an example maybe like of a time where that wasn't the case? You didn't have the creative director there and you had to do this on your own. What is your litmus test to know whether or not you did a good job?
Usually, no feedback is good feedback. I rarely get feedback on my work. It's rare that I get bad feedback, but that happens. It may never be bad feedback. It may be just critical of like, hey, we needed this. Maybe we missed the mark here, or we need to consider this next time, especially if it's an ongoing creative relationship. But yeah, usually no feedback is like, okay, mission accomplished. So especially with one of my accounts, I never hear from the customer ever. I can't remember.
That's so different than weddings.
It is like 5 years of shooting. Maybe I've gotten like three, like, hey, good job.
Yeah.
Or the feedback is they request me again for the same job, next year,
Yeah.
or if it's a yearly thing. So that happens.
You know that you did it then. Let's take one step further back though. You're there, you're on set, you're there capturing the photos. And if you're there solo, what's going on through your head to tell you like, yes, I got it, or like, ooh, I don't know about this?
I mean, usually it takes some warm up. I feel like the first like couple hundred images, I'm not really feeling it yet. They're still like learning the people, responding to the environment. But I think as we progress, I've shot enough variety that there's like, okay, something's going to work. And I'm in my own head about like what's not working. And I'm probably blowing it out of proportion. It's not as bad as I think it is. And then when I get to work the images in post and I realize like, okay, there's good stuff here. I think just that seed of self-doubt will purvey itself no matter what. So my goal has always been shoot enough that there's something.
Oh man.
And usually when I get the images culled and I get a proof sheet back and they pick so few and I'm like, wow, I thought we had more, but they pick so few. So I realize like we don't need a lot. Like they're going to pick like one or two of a set of images. So
I'm really glad that you shared that because I definitely feel that way. When I go out to shoot, I'm like, I don't know if I got it. I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, getting back and sometimes you see those photos, you get that reality check. You're like, okay, phew, I trusted my skills and I think I got it and we're good. So I appreciate that.
even your worst day, and this is not like a hubris thing, like I'm so good. It's like even my worst effort sometimes is going to be better than someone else's best effort. Like there's just like disparity in work. Like everybody performs at different levels. Like I have people whose work I look up to in a big way, and their worst day is better than my best day. So there's always like that. You can always rest. Like I've been doing this long enough. My results aren't a mistake, and it's the culmination of all my effort and knowledge and experience. And I'm going to get something. Like there's a result that I'm going to get. And usually the differences are maybe not more skill related as they are like a difference of opinion with someone in creative. Like, oh, like I'm seeing it this way. And those are things we can always communicate our way through. Like we can talk our way through those problems. It's rarely like you didn't use a key light at the right angle, or your fill light is too underexposed. Like there's never that discussion. Like if there's a look in mind, I know how to drive the look to get there. So it's usually like more the minutia of like what's not working.
You like, there's still that trash can in the background. You should have moved that, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, boring stuff. I gotcha.
Yeah, maybe no more like abstract stuff, like the vibe or the feel of the images is off, or
Mm,
maybe the talent isn't working correctly if we're working with models, or it's something more abstract.
I see. One thing that we don't really talk about a lot on the podcast is gear, but like I understand that gear is important to a degree. So walk me through like what's in your camera bag when you go to a commercial shoot.
So it's gotten now it's not camera bag, it's camera bags
Bags,
and cases. So there's a lot
cases,
more gear
suitcases.
involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, I shoot right now. My primary body is a Sony A1, their flagship camera. So I shoot with that. All my lenses are Tamron lenses. I do most of my work with some combination of their 17 to 28 f2.8. My Mac Daddy lens, which I'm actually doing a post on today on social media, is the 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8. It's like the
Wow.
ultimate. Like I got 35. 35 is like my favorite focal length, and then I love like 85 telephoto on. So like it hits everything I need in a lens. And then if I'm getting tired of carrying around too much lens, I shoot the 28 to 75 f2.8 G2 from Tamron as well. That's like a great, like if I had to pick one lens to live with comfortably and shoot like the multitude of work, I can do everything from 28 to 75 in my space. I really need much longer. I think after 85, so like 150 to 200, there isn't a lot different for me other than the amount of reach I'm getting. But the look of the photos, I think from 85 on is very similar. So that's my primary kit right now for my Sony gear. And then I shoot Godox or Flashpoint on Adorama. I shoot their flashes, their flash system. So I've got, wireless transmitter, and then I've had like 6 or 7 of the 8200, the small little lights. They're kind of like the brickish
Yeah.
lights. And then I shoot the 8600 Pros. I've got a couple of those, and then the 8600, the standard version. And then I've got the big light. The big light is their 801200 Pro. It's got a battery pack, and it's double the output of my 600s. And that thing I pair with a Cheetah Stand has their Colt 45 long throw reflector,
Mhm.
and I've lit a mining rig at f8 at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the shadow side against the sun. I've lit the entire structure with the light maybe like 50 feet away
No
from that
kidding.
structure. So like I can throw serious light with that flash. So that's what I'm primarily using for lighting and cameras and lenses. And then I use like, I'm big with Think Tank bags. I love their bags. I've got like their big production studio bag that's 50 inches and can fit light stands and C stands and all my light and gear. I use a multi-cart to lug everything out on and tether my laptop remotely on location and throw all my stands. I'm like, I can't live without a multi-cart now. And then a lot of big modifiers. Like I'm shooting like 50, 60-inch umbrellas, big umbrellas. So like the larger the light, the more polished. And I shoot with like V flats and for fill and negative fill if I want to, or to scrim a light or flag a light and keep light from spilling where I don't want it. So a lot of it is light control now. It's like where the light is hitting and where it's not hitting. Just my modifiers have gotten a lot bigger compared to when I shot weddings. They used to be very small and compact.
So let me ask you, I really appreciate you sharing all that. One of the hard things for listeners is always, okay, that's a lot of gear. I don't have that kind of cash. I'm not working professionally. If you had to start over with, let's say, some sort of entry level camera body, what would be the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 things that you would prioritize purchasing?
I guess it depends on the space that they're shooting in. Let's say it's weddings and portraits. I feel like most people overthink lenses, and you can get 95% of the work you need with a 35 millimeter and an 85 millimeter, or a lens that encompasses that focal range if you shoot weddings. I've shot longer lenses. I shot 100 weddings with a 35 and an 85 and nothing else. Like I didn't have a ultra wide angle lens. Like I have had those things over time, but if I do like an audit of like all my images, they're primarily shot at those 2 focal lengths, regardless of if it was a zoom lens or if it was those 2 primes. So a couple fast primes and you can shoot everything you could that could possibly come your way. I would start there, and then I would definitely encourage people to get acclimated with Flash. And even if that's not your look, you should know flash photography because it's going to save you when there's low light or no light. It's going to give you options creatively to change the aesthetic of the light and control harness like light that isn't there. And once you have a good handle on lighting, it will inform your use of natural light like tenfold. I do things with natural light now that are informed by because of how I placed studio lights or flashes around subjects. And I'm like, oh, I'm looking for the light in this direction. Like you become a better observer of light because you're used to moving it around people all the time. And now I think of in terms of like, oh, like the sunlight is bouncing off this wall and I'm in a shaded space. That's driving the look of my light. That's like on the most rudimentary level, like is understanding the direction of light, where it's originating from. And if is it soft or hard light? Is it indirect or direct light? Like those things, like I'm aware of all that like 24/7. I can't eat a meal with somebody and not think about the light, hitting their face from across from me. I think you have to get into flash photography on some level. And then if you decide like, I don't like a heavy handed flash look, or I'm not getting the results I like, and natural look is really my thing, that's okay too. But I think you should be informed and not just get there out of ignorance because you're like, oh, I don't like that look. Well, like, okay, but you still don't understand it. And you're using your weakness as an excuse.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Absolutely. Justin, I know that people are listening and they're thinking, I kind of want to see some of Justin's images. Like, what are we talking about here? Maybe some photos from his personal project. Who knows? Where can we find out more about you and see some of your images online?
You can find me at justinhaugen.com, justinhaugen.com. If you catch it in the next week, it's all 8-year-old wedding work, but it should be newly revamped commercial and business type photography and more portraiture, more like creative portraiture pretty soon. And then you can find me at Photo Warlock on Instagram, and I'm trying to get more active on there, but you can see my body. Most of my wedding work is still on there, which is going to get archived soon. And then I'll start posting more regularly my current photography. I wanted to mention one more thing. I'm sponsored by Tamron Americas, and I use their lenses. So I just want to encourage people to check them out because I do 100% of my professional work with their lenses. You can find some of my posts about it on my Instagram. But thanks again for having me on, Raymond. It's been a good time.
Big thanks to Justin for coming back onto the podcast. Let's talk about our biggest takeaways. First, the biggest takeaway that I had really was to learn to understand light. Always being mindful of things like direction of light, the type of light, whether it's hard or soft, direct or indirect, warm or cool. When photography is capturing light, knowing how to see and use it is what will give you a huge leg up. Takeaway number 2 is to invest in versatile gear and then learn how to use it. Justin took the same approach to shooting weddings as I did. One 35mm lens, one 85mm lens, and that was it. But the only way that you can really do that is to know your gear inside and out. And the only way to do that is to spend a lot of time with it. So when you spend time with your gear, when you know how it works intimately, you can really do things that most people wouldn't even consider. And that's going to make your work stand out. And takeaway number 3 is to stay adaptable. Justin was able to get into the commercial space because he had extensive knowledge of light from using it at so many weddings. When you explore and embrace new skills, the world of possibility for where you can take your camera and take your photography, it opens up. It is amazing. I would love to know your biggest takeaway. I'd love for you to share it within our free and amazing Beginner Photography Podcast community, which you can find and join right now by heading over to beginnerphotopod.com/group. All right, that is it for today. Until next week, remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Start a conversation. Grow together. That is it for this week. Remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.